Hello! Welcome back if you're joining me. And if you're new to these Facebook Lives, welcome also. My name is Juliet Martine, if we haven't met in person. And I'm doing this series of Facebook Lives so that we can start connecting and creating more of a like-hearted community. And in particular, to really start working with the energy of 2020, because it's a very different energy that we're in. So if you're joining me live on the call, welcome, thank you. And if you're watching this recording afterwards, welcome, thank you. It's lovely to have you here with me and to be part of this community as we're exploring this topic. So if you are joining me live, be sure to say hi in the chat box. Just type a hello so I know that you're here. Sometimes it's difficult to tell who's actually on the call, so be sure to say hi and feel free to use the chat box, whether you're watching the call live or you're joining afterwards. Please feel free to use the chat box and really engage in the call, because the more you engage in this call and the conversation that we're having tonight and the discussion and the exploration, then the more we get out of it. And one of the things I talk about is the ripple effect. Hi Heidi, thank you for saying hello. Hi Jane. One of the things I'm going to continue to talk about is the ripple effect. And as we're all interconnected, there is no separation. It's a complete illusion that you and I are separate and we're separate from the world that we live in and the things that we want are separate to us. Everything is interconnected because we're all part of this one great big sea of energy. And so part of the ripple effect that we can have just by joining on these calls and being part of the conversation, if you've just joined the call, please say hi. It is a ripple effect as the energy goes out through us and the people that we connect with and the people that we interact with in our life. So that's part of my purpose in doing these calls, is to be like a little drop in the ocean that you and I connect. There's a bit of a ripple effect that goes out and a ripple effect that touches the people that you touch and the people that you interact with. And bit by bit, we have a ripple effect around the world as we share our energy. So if you've joined the call, please say hi in the chat box and be part of the call in the conversation. So tonight, we've been talking about the energy of 2020 because it's a new decade, a new energy, a very different energy. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the energy of emotions and how that relates to 2020 and what's going on in the world. So if you've been part of these conversations, I've been talking about a lot of energy going on the planet that is, to me, kind of the energy of extreme. We've had extreme weather events, extreme global issues of pollution and global warming, a lot of extreme belief patterns on the planet in terms of extreme fanaticism and religious beliefs that become extreme social issues in terms of imbalance of energy and power and human abuses, and like the list goes on. So I won't reiterate. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please scroll through my Facebook page or my website or my YouTube channel and go back and have a listen to some of the calls I've done earlier. But you know, when things become extreme, then they're out of balance. And one of the things that I'm starting to look at is extreme weather events. And last week we looked at extreme weather events in terms of the element of air. And this week we're going to look at extreme weather events and what that's showing us internally to do with the element of water. So hi Jane, and also Sue, thank you for joining the call. So on the planet last year, certainly, and this year, we've had a lot of extreme water events. We've got Venice that is kind of sinking. There's too much water. The water is rising there, so a whole city is under threat because of water. Thank you, Heidi. Totally agree. We've had extreme, torrential rain in Australia following on from the fires, and I'm going to be talking about the energy of fire next week. And we've had extreme drought in Australia and other places around the world. We've had 4 years of drought before we've had recent rains. So the element of water, whether it's in excess or deficiency, it's been swinging, like the pendulum's been swinging extremes. We haven't had that sort of moderate, easy, balanced flow of water on the planet. And, that's another aspect of extreme. And the element of water in us, because we are made of the elements, we have the element of air in our breath, we have the element of water in our body, we have the element of earth in the minerals in our body, and we have the element of fire in our chi and the heat in our body. So we have all the elements that the earth has: air, water, fire, and earth. All those elements are within us. So what's going on elementally on the planet with the element of water is showing us what's going on perhaps within us elementally with the element of water within us. And the element of water specifically relates to our emotional body. So what's going on with our emotions? So when we look at on the planet globally where there are extreme weather events involving water, too much water or not enough water, it's like, as I said last week, mirror, mirror on the wall. What is that showing us about what's going on with our emotions, where we've got too much emotional energy or a deficiency of emotional energy where we're not allowing ourselves to actually feel? What is that showing us within us? And nothing is separate. Everything is interconnected, as I said earlier. So what is going on within us is the contribution that we're then making within the greater consciousness of humankind, or the mass consciousness, the consciousness of the masses. And so whatever we're experiencing emotionally with our water body, if you like, the water element within us, we're having that ripple effect in the greater consciousness of the masses of humankind. And that is then playing out through situations and events that are happening on the planet, but also it's being reflected back through extreme weather events that involve the element of water. So the good news about that is that when we're aware of what's going on internally, when we're connected internally, rather than just focusing on what's going on in the external world and reacting to that, but when we're aware of what's going on internally, and with that awareness, we can have the power of choice to make shifts in our energy, our emotional energy specifically that we're focusing on this week. When we shift our energy, then we change the ripple effect that we're having in the world. And that then goes out and has a positive effect as agents of change. It's not something that we're deliberately doing to try and manipulate things, but it is something that we can make a positive contribution in the world by looking at how we can shift our emotional energy and what we can do with that. And I was talking with a client today who was reflecting on how there was a situation going on at home, and a family member was really heightened in their emotional energy, in a bit of a frenzied state, and that was kind of destabilizing the family dynamics. And she noticed that the more she kind of got uptight and upset and emotionally reactive and worried about what was going on in the household, the more uptight and upset and emotionally reactive all the other members of the household became. And she said to me, gosh, I've got so much, when she realized that, and she actually decided to calm down her energy and to be a calming influence in the home. She said, I've got so much power in terms of the way my emotions are affecting other people in the household. And I said, well, it's power, but it's also the ripple effect, because we're constantly giving out energy. We're like radio transmitter towers. We're giving out energy through our thoughts, the energy of our thoughts, our consciousness through the energy of our emotions. And other people are being affected by that through that ripple effect. They're feeling what's going on with us emotionally as well as mentally. So the power we have, or more to the point, the service we can do in the world, is by really being aware of what is the emotional energy we're giving out and what is the effect that's having on the people around us. And is that the effect that we'd like to be having, or would we like to be having perhaps a different effect? So let's look at the energy of water and our emotional energy. So water is to do with our emotions, it's to do with our beliefs. Sometimes I think about beliefs as being more mental energy, thought patterns, but it was pointed out to me one time that, people will fight to the death for their beliefs. We'll fight to be right, to prove that we're right. And it's that emotional energy that comes up when we're really certain about our belief patterns and immovable about our belief patterns. So it does, beneath the thought patterns of a belief, there's actually a lot of emotional energy. So our emotional water element can relate to our belief patterns. It certainly relates to our feelings and to our fears as well. So when there's an excess of emotional energy, sometimes we can drown in our emotions. Hi, thank you for joining the call. If you want to add a hello in the chat box, I can see who's on the call. There's a few more people that have joined. And please feel free to add to the chat box at any point during the call. So when we look at the element of water, you can look at its physical properties and you can see how that relates to our emotional energy. So water, we can drown in water, a flood of tears, overwhelming sadness and grief. Loss, when we're feeling loss, there's a lot of emotional energy that can be very overwhelming. So that's one aspect of an excess of emotional energy, which is not to say it's good or bad or right or wrong. That's just where our energy can flow and go when there's a lot of emotional energy around sadness and loss. Fear, when we're in a state of fear and our emotions are operating with fear, then we can become very reactive. And that's another aspect, getting very upset or angry or righteous or getting into fights and arguments and conflict and dramas. Drama is a lot of emotional energy. So when we're used to being in a state of drama and everything is very dramatic and very big and so terrible, or we're so outraged, that's an excess of that water element, and we can get caught up in kind of that spiral of energy of being in drama and in that emotional energy. And then when there's a drought, there's a lack of water, how does that reflect back through our emotional energy? Sometimes that can be reflecting where we're not allowing ourselves to feel what our emotions are, or to share, to be vulnerable, to be in touch with our inner self and what's going on that emotional level. So we can be shut down in our emotions, we can be cut off from feeling, we can be emotionally exhausted as well when there's a real low of emotional energy, when we're worn out by our emotional energy. So there's a lot of different aspects to our emotional energy, and when we're not aware of how we're feeling emotionally and what's going on for us emotionally, that energy is just automatically going out into the world. We're making that contribution into the world, into the consciousness of the masses. We're sending out those energetic signals whether we realize it or not, and that is having a ripple effect. So that's why it's so important that we have a look at what's going on internally, emotionally for us. And when situations happen in life, our mental body immediately kicks in, and we either like it or we don't like it. And so our emotional body, if we're not liking what's going on in life, if it's not happening the way we want it to, then our mental body will say, I don't like this, it's not what I want, it's not right. And then our emotional body will come in with that element of water and start reacting and getting upset and trying to control things. So that's where we can start to feel upset, we can start to pull away, we can get into anger and blame, we can start to become defensive or protective, seeing ourselves as being separate to other people. So our emotional body can start us to separate from other people, and I'm not okay with you, and I'm going to be here with me, and in my emotional upset, I try to control the situation, and in the process we just get further and further apart and into that kind of Mexican standoff, where if we're not liking what's happening and not allowing it to happen and trying to control the situation, then our emotional body is ultimately in charge of us rather than us being in charge of our emotional body. And that's where we can start to really, go in that downward spiral with our emotions. We can start to drown in the energy of our emotions. We can become very reactive, and it can be very difficult to snap out of it. A lot of clients that I work with one-on-one come to me because they're drowning in that emotional energy, and they're finding it very difficult to step out of it, and their emotional body is controlling them and their reactions to everyday events. So it's not just in big situations in life, but in the everyday sense, our emotional body can be very much in charge. So how do we actually manage that? And particularly, where we're having that ripple effect on other people and our family members, where, we might come home at the end of the day and we're angry about something, or we're sad about something, or we're depressed, feeling down about something, or we're feeling indignant about something, or confused about something, then, the ripple effect that has on our family members, or when something's going on at home and it's affecting us emotionally, and then we take that energy into work or into the traffic as we might drive to work or be on the bus or the train getting into work. We're taking this energy with us, and then before we know it, it's that adage, like if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you stub your toe, then the rest of the day becomes that energy. The emotional energy just keeps compounding and compounding, and it can be very difficult to break free of it, and then it can start to really trigger more mental energy of feeling frightened or unsafe or insecure, or having thought patterns that continue to increase that divide between us and other people. So what is the constructive aspects? There can be destructive aspects to an element and constructive aspects. So in the destructive energy of water, we can be very overwhelmed and drowned in that emotional energy, as I've spoken about. But in the constructive sense, water is an equalizer. It's a balancer. And the energy of 2020 is all about balance. So we can really learn to use our emotional energy in a positive sense, a constructive way, to actually help us come back into balance rather than being upset. When we're upset emotionally, there's usually a set up happening for us to see something or learn something or look at things from a different perspective, for perhaps a healing to take place or a greater shift in our awareness of ourself and our own energy. So how can we use this emotional energy in a constructive sense for balance, for having a greater sense of inner equilibrium within us, that we become a source of equilibrium in the home environment or the work environment or wherever our energy is being felt by others. So that's one constructive aspect of the water element in our emotional body. Another one is the cleansing effect. Water is a cleanser. It washes things out. It flushes things. It disperses energy, and it can release energy where it's stuck. It can bring healing of our emotions. So how can we use our emotional energy in that constructive way to cleanse things? And also, water is very much about flow, being in the flow, rather than being stuck actually in the energy of allowing. And I was speaking with someone just before this live call, and she was talking about how, 5 years ago, her emotional body really ruled her life, and she would get very overwhelmed at the slightest stress on emotions and be very teary. And she said she finally made peace with her emotions and her emotionality, I guess you'd call it. And in making peace with her emotions, it meant that her emotional body was no longer ruling her and controlling her life. And the emotional energy started to balance more and be more flowing, because she was really allowing herself to be who she is and true to herself. So there's lots of different ways we can work with our emotional energy. Being more fluid, being more flexible is the element of water. And when we're not stuck and rigid in our thought patterns and our belief patterns, then our emotions can allow us to flow through different situations and different ways of being and different ways of operating that actually help us maintain a state of balance and equilibrium. So what I want to do now is just do a little bit of exploration for you listening to the call to just explore what your emotional energy is like at the moment. Is it being tossed around through the ripple effect of everyone else's energy around you and world events and what's going on at work or at home or with your finances? Like where are your emotions at? Where is your emotional energy at? And then how can we look to use the energy of water, the element of water, to actually bring things into more balance and cleansing and a greater state of flow. So, one of the things I want you to invite you to contemplate is, if you just close your eyes, we're going to do a little bit of inner connecting rather than outer connecting, to just connect in with your own emotions, emotional body, and just get a sense of that element of water within you. And what are some of the emotions that you struggle with most? Maybe it's anger or sadness or grief or joy or overwhelm. And whatever comes up, just type it in the chat box. What are some of the emotions that you struggle with most? Yeah, overwhelm with what's happening on the planet at the moment. I have a lot of clients that are experiencing that at the moment. Children, particularly. Not that they're reading the news headlines, but children pick up on the energy going on around them. What are some of the emotions I struggle with? When I feel like I'm not being heard, yes, not being seen, not being listened to. How to deal with conflict, yes. That tension, that inner tension with conflict is something that I can certainly relate to myself. I have difficulties with conflict. I like things to be really peaceful and harmonious, and when there's conflict, that inner tension, that emotion, I find difficult. I can sometimes struggle with. So just being aware of where do I struggle with my emotional energy? In what ways can I feel overwhelmed with my emotions? Whatever comes up, just type it in the chat box. Even if you're watching afterwards. Hi, Amanda. So sometimes that can be because there's an excess of emotional energy when we're struggling with our emotions and being overwhelmed by them. Sometimes it can be because we're frightened of our emotional energy and being really vulnerable and honest and connected with ourselves. Thank you. If you've just joined the call, say hi in the chat box. We're just looking at emotional energy. So another question, just to help you get in touch with that water element, is maybe, in what ways can I freeze and shut down my emotional energy? where do I kind of go cold or shut off from actually feeling? It's not safe for me to feel. I feel too exposed or vulnerable, or my emotional energy might overwhelm me, so it's easier for me to not feel. Or sometimes when I'm working with clients, the emotion that's being felt is actually numbness. I don't feel anything. And that's where we're really blocking our emotional body and what it's trying to tell us. Heidi said, overwhelmed with too many things to do and trying to be a part of everything and present with everything. Yeah, so that excess of busyness going on around us and trying to keep up with things and trying to be the best person, where we're showing up with what's going on and trying to show up fully and be fully present. I know certainly as a mum, there have been plenty of times where I felt a lot of guilt in my emotions in terms of not being enough as a mum and not being enough in my work life and trying to balance so many balls, juggling them in the air and feeling like I'm not doing a great job at any one of the roles that I'm doing. So just identifying where do I tend to shut down? I know certainly my habit has been in conflict, or where someone is not liking me for whatever reason, then I tend to just go, yep, okay, shut off. I'm not going to give any emotional reactivity here. I'm not going to allow myself to feel what I'm feeling. And so that can be where I might freeze over my water element and become frozen in my emotional body. Maybe there's a bit of anger coming up that it's not okay. I don't feel it's okay for me to be feeling. And so I will really stop myself from feeling the anger. Maybe I have a judgment around I shouldn't be feeling angry, or I should be okay with whatever's going on around me. And so I can certainly freeze my water element when anger's coming up. So just looking for you where you might freeze things. Uncertainty shuts me down if there's an unknown. Yeah. So uncertainty can really put us in a state of fear, which is the emotional body, where we feel unsafe. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how things are going to resolve. And we feel unsafe in that vulnerability and that uncertainty. And so we can cut off from feeling our emotions at that point. So thank you, Heidi, for that share. And then another question to ask is, what would I ideally like to be feeling in my emotional body? Another way of looking at that is, what's the ripple effect that I'd like to be having in my environment, the environment around me, the people that I'm connected with, and the part of the world that I'm in? What's the ripple effect I'd like to be offering through the way I am within my own emotional state of being? This is where we get to choose. What kind of influence would I like to be having? What kind of energy would I like to be putting out through my emotional state of being for those that are around me? We can look at what's going on in the world and we can point fingers of blame and we can get angry and clench our fist and say things should change and, petition politicians and sign all sorts of insistent petitions to try and bring about change in rules and regulations. But the greatest effect we can have, the greatest effect we can have on that personal level, is through the energy we're giving out and how that then plays out in the world around us. I'd like to feel and offer calm and balance, not extreme emotions. Yeah, I would too. Thank you for sharing that. I would too. That would be my, whilst not denying what I'm feeling emotionally, the ripple effect I'd like to be having is one of being calm within myself, connected with my own inner state of peace and well-being, and offering that energy into the world. not to deny how I feel about what's going on in the world, but actually offering a calming energy in the world. So that's something that we can look at. And actually, someone I was speaking with earlier today said that she's been at a few meetings where some really high-level leaders have shared their emotional energy during the meeting and been really vulnerable with their emotions. So they haven't held back, they haven't denied their emotions, they haven't frozen their emotions, they haven't been numb to being a feeling entity, an emotional being. As a human being, we have an emotional body. It's part of our internal guidance system, so it's not to be shunned. And she said that actually these leaders, in sharing their vulnerability and what they really feel from the heart about whatever was being discussed in business or the way it was affecting them on a personal level, by being really vulnerable and speaking about how they were feeling, it gave everyone in the audience and at the business meetings permission to do the same, to get in touch with what they were feeling about whatever issues were being discussed, and to make a contribution from that place of shared vulnerability, honesty, authenticity. So our emotions are, in a sense, part of our gateway into what is really true for us, and to speak from the heart and from the depths of our being. And so it's not that our emotional reactions are negative. There is no positive or negative. They are what they are. We feel what we feel. It is what it is. But in being honest with ourselves and vulnerable and willing to allow ourselves to feel and willing to allow ourselves to share how we're feeling, without blaming, without labeling, without judging, just allowing that to occur, then we can actually be a positive effect in terms of giving other people permission to do the same. And then we're all meeting in a more authentic place. This is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on for me. This is how it's impacting me. How about you? And how can we collaborate together to create a more positive outcome? You know, a lot of what I see in the media is dealing with things at the mental level of what's going on in the world, but not actually getting in touch with how we feel about it and the truth within us and how we'd like to deal with things differently as a result of that. So let's... Oh, one other thing I wanted to share about our emotional energy, and this comes back to the comment I said about someone who felt that their emotions were really running the show and they were very overwhelmed by their emotional energy and tearing up all the time, is that sometimes our emotional energy can be to do with other people. Just as we have a ripple effect with other people have a ripple effect with us. And so sometimes our emotional energy cannot even be our own emotional energy. It's actually our response to other people, but sometimes it's our taking on other people's emotions. And I certainly know that as a parent, it's very easy for me to take on the emotions of my children and to worry for them or try and fix things for them, whereas that can be an excess of emotional energy. And instead of empathizing with my children or friends or family or work colleagues or whoever it is I'm working with, particularly working with clients, empathizing with clients, we can go into sympathy. And that's where we really join people in their emotional energy and start to drown in whatever emotions they're experiencing. And the difference between empathy and sympathy, empathy where we're relating to what's going on for someone emotionally, particularly, we have compassion for what they're experiencing. But when we join in the energy, we go into sympathy. And that's where we can again start to drown in our emotional body and become overwhelmed by the emotions of what's going on around us and start to lose ourselves and lose our boundary between this is my energy field and it ends here, and this is your energy field and it ends there. And so I'm taking on your emotional energy. So boundaries is something I'm going to talk about in a future Facebook Live, because the ramifications of boundaries are just enormous and the significance of it is enormous. So I won't go further into empathy and sympathy at this point, but just be aware, sometimes your emotional energy that you're experiencing is not actually yours. You're taking on the emotions of other people around you. someone walks into the office and they're angry about something, and suddenly everyone in the office is having a day of grumpiness and angry and discord, and actually we're taking on the energy of the person when it's not our energy to start with. So just a little side note with our emotional energy and the element of water to be aware of, am I in empathy or sympathy here? And is my emotional body becoming exacerbated because I'm in sympathy rather than the compassion of empathy? Okay, so now let's look at how we can shift our emotional energy. So one of the things to identify is, well, how would I like to be feeling? Calm, balanced, centered, compassionate, caring, kind, a source of equilibrium. However you'd like to be feeling, that's something that you get to choose and to shift your emotional energy around that. And so one of the questions to ask when you look at how would I like to be feeling, how would I like my emotions to be having a ripple effect in the world, is to ask yourself the question, what is it that I need to allow? So for example, Heidi, you said you'd like to be feeling and offering the energy of calm and balance, and rather than extreme energies. So when you ask yourself the question, what is it that I need to allow? That's going to give you a key as to how you can shift your emotional energy. So you might like to just close your eyes and reflect on that. When you feel where you're at emotionally now and how you'd like to be feeling emotionally, and the ripple effect you'd like to be having, ask the question, what is it that I need to allow? Oftentimes, our emotional energy is a reaction to what's happening because we're not allowing it to happen. And so when we can allow something to happen or to be the way it is, or allow ourselves to feel the way we feel, then it brings our emotional energy back into a state of balance or fluidity or flow. So Heidi, when you reflect on what is it that I need to allow, is there anything in particular that comes up there? You might like to add that to the chat box. I know for me, when I struggle with emotions around conflict or not being liked, what I need to allow is simply for the other person to be as they be. To think what they think, to feel what they feel, to be entitled to how they think and they feel, and to allow that that's okay. That doesn't necessarily change who I am. It doesn't necessarily make a statement about me. So I allow others to be as they are, and I allow myself to be as I am. And in that process, my emotional energy becomes really diffused and dispersed, and the reactivity disappears. So that's a really good question. What is it that I need to allow? How can I let go of control and allow a greater sense of flow? Again, the water element. What is it that I could let go of control around and allow a greater sense of control, flow to happen, so that things can find a new balance? Yeah, Heidi, allowing it to be as it is, to be as it be. Ultimately, that's the key for all of us, to allow things to be as they are. We can't control the world, we can't control people around us. When we allow them to be as they are, we actually give ourselves permission to be as we are. So in allowing situations to be as it is, we allow ourselves to be as it is. So it's just this ripple effect that comes back to us. As I allow things to be as they are, I allow myself to be as I am. Inner, outer, outer, inner. Everything is interconnected, so everything flows into the other. So let's take it another step further and just do a little bit of a meditation to work with that water element and our emotional body to really use it more deliberately, more consciously in the ripple effect that we're having within ourselves, within our life, and the cause and effect or the consequences or the connection that we're having in the world around us. So what I'd like you to do is simply close your eyes. Use this as a little bit of a guided visualization. As you close your eyes, just take a couple of slow, deep breaths. And with each breath, allow yourself to be more and more present in the here and the now. Feeling into your body, your energy field, this present moment. And really allow yourself to connect with the element of water within you. As you do, just noticing, how does my emotional body feel right now, in this moment? Does it feel calm and relaxed? Does it feel a little bit tense or chaotic? Just noticing how my emotions, my emotional body and the element of water within me feel. No judgment, no editing. Just noticing, observing, feeling. And then as you do, imagine yourself standing underneath a beautiful, fresh, clean waterfall. Imagine the water gently flowing down over your body, over your greater energy field, that field of energy that extends about 1 meter in all directions, 3 feet in all directions from your physical body, your being. Just imagine this beautiful, natural, cleansing waterfall flowing gently down through your energy field, your aura, down through your physical body. And as it does, imagine it just gently cleansing all of your energy, any negative emotions, any fears, any limiting beliefs, any upsets, any tensions. Imagine this beautiful waterfall just cleansing through your body, through your emotional body, and taking all that negative energy down into the earth beneath you. That energy being absorbed by the earth, soaked up by the earth, leaving you clearer, fresher, lighter in your body, your energy field, your emotions. Maybe you even want to drink some of the water from a waterfall, taking it into your physical body. Absorbing that fresh, clean, pure water into your body. And really, as you do, letting go of any emotional energy that you no longer need, that no longer serves you, allowing it all to be flushed down into the earth. Any feelings you've been holding on to or harboring, any angers or resentments, any grief, sadness, just allowing all that energy to be washed away down into the earth, leaving your body, your energy field, clear, refreshed, revitalized. And then just allow yourself to connect in with your heart. Feeling that loving energy in your heart, that beautiful kindness and compassion that is who we are at the essence of our being. And imagine that beautiful, loving energy that we feel in our heart. Imagine it being like a drop of water. And that drop of water just dropping into our being, a drop of pure, clear, loving, fresh water, and it just rippling through the water element within us, bringing a beautiful, calming, soothing drop of water that ripples through the water throughout our body, the emotional body that we're in, and it having a beautiful, soothing, calming ripple effect throughout the whole of our being. And imagine that one drop of heart energy being dropped into the ocean of our being, and that having a ripple that just carries out through our energy field, out into the world around us. Gently sending a ripple effect of calming, soothing, even healing energy into the oceans across our planet, into the oceans of people and the natural world, creatures on the planet, all sentient beings. This beautiful drop of calming, soothing, balancing, healing water energy rippling out like a pebble in a pond, gently bringing that energy across the whole of our planet. Very gently, that we become a healing, soothing, calming energy in the world. And in the process, our own emotional body is also soothed and calmed and healed. Just that one little drop of love, compassion, kindness, care, love, inner peace. One little drop of inner peace rippling through and changing all the water element within us, all the water on the planet, all the water element within everyone that is touched by that energy, as we're all connected. And just offering that as a gift to those that might like to receive it. Those that don't, it's absolutely fine. Just offering that as a beautiful wave of soothing, calming energy. Allowing yourself to drink from that same energy to be calmed and soothed in the process. And then just letting it go, allowing that to ripple wherever it needs to go. However it goes, just bringing your awareness back into the center of your being, back into your own body, your own energy field, and then just noticing how your emotional body feels, how your emotions feel, how that element of water feels within you now. And when you feel ready, just gently take a couple of slow, deep breaths, giving your fingers and toes a bit of a wriggle, having a bit of a stretch, and just gently opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. Okay. So just notice how you feel now. You might like to type a couple of words in the chat box just to let me know how you're feeling. More balanced, thank you. Happier? More relaxed, yes. I certainly feel more relaxed. And if you're listening to this recording afterwards, by all means drop me a line or add a couple of words in the chat box to let me know how that has felt for you. Just appreciating that that's something that we can all do for ourselves whenever we feel like it, whenever we need it, whenever we find ourselves in a state of emotional upset or upheaval, or even when we're feeling shut down emotionally. That's something that we can do to reconnect with our emotions and to connect with that empathy for ourselves and whatever it is that we're experiencing, rather than remaining numb to our emotions and closed off to our emotional body, because there might be something that we're meant to understand more from what it is that we're feeling. So that's a simple meditation, guided visualization. You can use at any point in time. Feel free to share it with family and friends, to adapt it in a way that might work better for you. And really the purpose of doing these visualizations is to help us become the agents of change that we want to be in the world and within our individual lives. So each week I'm going to continue these calls. Next week we're going to be looking at the element of fire, which will be really interesting, how that's been playing out. Certainly Australia has had its fair dose of fire. So next week feel free to join me at 8 o'clock on Monday evening. Heidi said, you struggle to switch your mind off completely. Lovely to watch the replay and try it again. Do I have a meditation series? Not at the moment, but I will be. And out of these Facebook Lives, I'll be creating a meditation series as well. So if you had difficulty switching off the mind, doing that visualization, then you might like to go back to the previous week, which was Facebook Live number 2, and do the visualization which was to do with the mental body, because that's that busy mind, the monkey mind, all that mental chatter and busyness. Do that visualization first, and then do the emotional visualization second. That way you're bringing your mental body into alignment and then your emotional body into alignment. So doing the two, one after the other, they're not particularly long, they're very easy to do, really help switch or calm the mind first before we go into the emotional body. So I totally get what you're saying, Heidi, and the busyness of the mind is something that most people have difficulty with, because we're in a very overstimulated world right now. There's a lot of information going back and forth, there's a lot of mental chatter, and it is very difficult at times to really calm the mind, to allow ourselves to even connect with our emotions. But one thing I would say, Heidi, and anyone else listening, is the more we do these exercises that are really about connecting in with what we're thinking, how we're feeling, the more we do them, the more the mind gets used to us doing them, and the easier they become. So the more the mental chatter starts to quiet, because the mind knows, oh, we're just going to do this 5-minute little visualization exercise here. There's nothing much going on that I need to pay attention to, so I'm going to allow Heidi or Juliet or whoever it is to have some time out and just have that quietude and return to a state of balance, to allow the nervous system to switch off and to go into a little bit of stillness so that we can get in touch with what it is we're feeling. And in that visualization, you might also like to check in with what am I feeling, and is there anything here that I need to be aware of that is giving me more information about what I might be dealing with at the moment? Because perhaps the mind is busy because we're dealing with something in particular at the moment, and so our emotional body might actually have a message for us, or some truth for us, or something that we really need to connect with and be honest about with ourselves. So that's something that you might also like to add into that visualization, is to check in with, how am I feeling, and is there anything that my emotional body is showing me right now that I need to be aware of, that maybe I need to take action on. So thank you, Heidi, thank you, Jane, thank you, Sue, for joining tonight, and if you've been listening to the recording, thank you for joining me, and I really look forward to seeing you next week, and to building a community of like-hearted people. We're used to talking about like-minded people, but that really keeps us stuck in that busy mental energy, and really where we connect is from the heart. So I'm hoping that through this series of Facebook Lives and creating meditation series, as Heidi has suggested, and other materials that I'm creating at the moment, that we can start to come together and really connect, because we are quite isolated in a world in which we're more connected than ever before through technology, but we're not really connected here on that heart level with ourselves as much as with each other. So it's that inner connection as much as the interconnection. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, Heidi, for your input, and Sue, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And if you have any questions at all, please type them in the box or send me a Facebook message. And if you found this useful, please share it with friends, family, invite them along to future Facebook Lives, and the more the merrier. So until next week, thank you so much, and have a great week in the meantime. Bye-bye for now.